The alarm bells rang through the command center of the UES Ragnarok. Admiral Sarah Chen stood at the main display, watching the dots appear on the edge of their detection range. 12 ships, big ones coming from deep space toward Earth's solar system. "Ma'am, we're getting strange readings," reported Lieutenant Torres from his station. "These ships don't match any design in our database. The energy signatures are completely different from anything we've seen before." Chen nodded slowly. She had been expecting this day for years. Earth's deep space monitoring stations had been picking up signals from beyond the solar system for decades. Signals that suggested they were not alone in the universe. Now it seemed the universe had come to them. "Size estimate on those ships?" Chen asked. "Each one is about 2 kilometers long, ma'am. They're moving at 7 light speed and slowing down. Their trajectory suggests they're heading for Earth orbit." Chen turned to her communications officer. "Send a message to Earth Command. Tell them we have visitors. Unknown ships approaching the solar system. We're moving to intercept." The Ragnarok was humanity's most advanced warship. 3 kilometers of steel and armor filled with weapons that could crack a moon in half. It had been built during the dark years when Earth thought it might face invasion from an unknown enemy. Now that enemy had finally arrived, but they didn't look like invaders. As the alien ships got closer, more details became clear. They were beautiful, in a way that human ships were not. Smooth curves and flowing lines made them look more like art than war machines. They glowed with soft blue light that pulsed gently along their hulls. These ships looked like they were built by a civilization that valued beauty over function. The Ragnarok, by comparison, looked like what it was: a weapon. Sharp angles and thick armor plating covered its hull. Weapon turrets stuck out like metal thorns. Every line of the ship spoke of violence and war. It had been designed by humans who knew that space was dangerous, and that sometimes you had to fight to survive. "Ma'am, we're receiving a transmission," the communications officer reported. "It's on multiple frequencies. They're trying different languages and mathematical sequences. I think they're trying to establish communication." "Put it through," Chen ordered. The main screen flickered and showed a being unlike anything humans had ever seen. It stood tall and thin with skin that looked like crystal. Its eyes were large and blue, and when it spoke, its voice was like music. "Greetings, inhabitants of the 3rd planet," the being said in perfect English. "I am Ambassador Veltar of the Galactic HFY. We come in peace to welcome your species into the greater galactic community." Chen stepped forward. "I am Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Forces. You are in our solar system without permission. State your intentions." Seemed surprised by her directness. "Admiral Chen, we mean no harm. We are here to offer your species membership in the Galactic Council. We have been monitoring your progress and believe you are ready to join the civilized worlds." "Monitoring us?" Chen's voice grew cold. "For how long?" "Several of your decades. We have watched your species develop space travel and establish colonies on nearby worlds. Your progress has been impressive for such a young civilization." Behind, Chen could see other aliens. Some looked like insects with too many arms. Others seemed to be made of flowing liquid that held a rough human shape. All of them looked peaceful and advanced. None of them looked like they had ever been in a real fight. "We would like to come aboard your vessel to discuss the terms of your membership," Veltar continued. "There are many benefits to joining the galactic community. Protection from hostile forces, access to advanced technology, trade opportunities with thousands of worlds." Chen looked at the alien ships on her display. They were keeping their distance, staying about 1,000,000 kilometers away from the Ragnarok. To them, it probably seemed like a respectful distance. To Chen, it meant they had no idea about human weapon ranges. The Ragnarok could hit targets at twice that distance. "You may come aboard," Chen said finally, "but understand that this is a military vessel. My crew will be armed and alert. Any aggressive action will be met with immediate response." Veltar looked confused. "Armed Admiral Chen, surely there is no need for weapons during a peaceful diplomatic meeting." "Ambassador, every human ship carries weapons. Every human colony has defenses. Every human soldier is trained to fight. That's how we've survived this long." The crystal being seemed to pause as if processing this information. "I see. We will of course respect your customs. May we transport aboard your ship?" "Transport?" Chen raised an eyebrow. You mean teleportation? You have that technology of... Of course. It is standard among civilized species. We will arrive in your main hangar bay in 10 minutes. Chen cut the transmission and turned to her second-in-command. Commander Rodriguez, I want a full security detail in the hangar. Armed but not threatening. I want these aliens to see that we're ready for anything, but I don't want to start a war before we know what we're dealing with. Yes, ma'am. Should we power down weapons? Chen thought about it. The alien ships showed no signs of aggression, but they also showed no signs of any weapons at all. That made her nervous. Either they were truly peaceful, or their weapons were so advanced that humans couldn't detect them. Keep weapons online, but not targeted. I want to be ready, but I don't want to give them a reason to think we're hostile. As Chen made her way to the hangar bay, she thought about what this meeting might mean. First contact with an alien civilization was the most important moment in human history. But something about the aliens bothered her. They acted like they were doing humans a favor by making contact, like humanity was a child that needed guidance. The hangar bay was filled with Marines in full combat gear. They stood at attention, weapons visible but not aimed. Chen had chosen her best people for this moment. These were soldiers who had fought in the colony wars and the asteroid mining conflicts. They knew how to stay calm under pressure. A bright light filled the center of the hangar bay. When it faded, 5 aliens stood there. Veltar was the tallest, but the others were just as strange. One looked like a giant bug with 4 arms. Another seemed to be made of blue gel that moved like water but held its shape. The third looked almost human, except for the extra eyes and the fact that its skin changed colors. Stepped forward and bowed slightly. Admiral Chen, thank you for allowing us aboard your vessel. These are my advisors. Military consultant Zix Talal, Trade Representative Neem Ara, Cultural Analyst Keth Moore, and Technology Assessor Plexom. Chen nodded to each of them. Welcome aboard the Ragnarok. I'll give you a tour of the ship before we discuss your proposal. As they walked through the corridors, Chen noticed how the aliens reacted to everything they saw. The thick blast doors that could seal off sections of the ship in case of hull breach, the weapon storage lockers that lined the hallways, the emergency, medical stations, designed to treat battle wounds. Everything about the ship spoke of war and violence. Admiral said quietly, "May I ask why your ship is so heavily armed? The weapons we detect seem capable of destroying entire cities." "They are," Chen replied simply. "The Ragnarok was built to protect Earth from any threat. We didn't know what was out there in space, so we prepared for the worst." Zixel, the military consultant, spoke up. His voice buzzed like an insect. "Admiral, our scans show that every member of your crew carries personal weapons. Is this normal for your species?" Commander Rodriguez answered before Chen could. "Sir, every human learns to fight. It's part of our basic education. We've had to fight for everything we have." "Fight whom?" asked Keth Moore, the cultural analyst. Her skin shifted from blue to purple as she spoke. "Your planet shows no signs of other intelligent species. We fought each other," Rodriguez said matter-of-factly. "For thousands of years, human nations fought wars over land, resources, ideas. We've only been united for about 50 years. The aliens looked shocked. Nim, the trade representative, made a sound like water bubbling. "You fought your own species. For what purpose?" Chen decided to be direct, because different groups of humans wanted different things. Some wanted more land. Some wanted control of trade routes. Some had different ideas about how society should work. When talking didn't work, we fought. "But surely," Veltar said, his voice strained, "your leaders could have found peaceful solutions." "Sometimes they did," Chen replied. "Sometimes they didn't. That's why we learn to fight. When someone decides to take what's yours by force, you have 2 choices: fight back or lose everything." They reached the ship's main armory. Through the transparent aluminum windows, the aliens could see rows of weapons, rifles, pistols, explosives, and things that looked like they belonged in a nightmare. Plexum, the technology assessor, made a clicking sound. "Admiral, some of these weapons appear to be designed for use against your own species." "That's correct," Chen said. "When humans fight, we fight with everything we have. We've developed weapons for every situation and every enemy, even other humans. especially other humans. We know how humans think and fight. We know our own weaknesses. The tour continued through the ship's medical bay, where the aliens saw equipment designed to treat everything from laser burns to radiation poisoning. The engineering section showed them fusion reactors that could overload to destroy the ship if it was about to be captured. The mess hall had emergency food supplies that could keep the crew alive for months during a siege. Everything on the ship had a military purpose. Even the recreational areas were designed so they could be quickly converted to additional medical bays or weapon storage if needed. The Ragnarok was not just a warship. It was a mobile fortress designed to fight against impossible odds. "Admiral," Veltar said as they returned to the conference room, "your ship is certainly impressive, but surely such military preparations are no longer necessary. You have achieved spaceflight. You have colonies on other worlds. Your species has moved beyond the need for such aggressive measures." Chen sat down at the conference table and looked at each of the aliens. "Ambassador, let me ask you something. How many wars has your Galactic Council fought in the last H100 years?" "Wars?" Veltar seemed confused by the question. "The Council maintains peace throughout the galaxy. We have not had a major conflict in over 1,000 years. And how do you maintain this peace? Through diplomacy, trade agreements, and mutual cooperation. All civilized species recognize the benefits of peaceful coexistence." Chen leaned back in her chair. "What happens when you encounter a species that doesn't want to cooperate? What if they want to take what others have? Such situations are handled through negotiation, and if necessary, economic sanctions. And if negotiation fails, if sanctions don't work." The aliens looked at each other. It was clear they had never seriously considered this possibility. Finally, Zixtel spoke up. "Admiral, any species advanced enough to pose a threat would also be advanced enough to recognize the benefits of peace." Chen smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. "Ambassador, I think you should know something about humans. We reached space not because we were peaceful, but because we were good at war. We developed our best technology while trying to destroy each other. We learned to work together only after we realized that our real enemies might come from outside our world." "I don't understand," Veltar said. "Ambassador, humans are predators. We evolved by hunting and fighting. Every major advance in our civilization came from conflict. We learned to make fire to cook meat and forge weapons. We learned to work metal to make better tools for hunting and war. We developed chemistry to make explosives. We split the atom to make bombs. We reached space because we needed spy satellites and missile platforms." The aliens sat in stunned silence. Finally, Plexum spoke. "Admiral, are you saying your entire civilization is based on warfare?" "I'm saying our civilization is based on survival, and sometimes survival requires fighting." Chen stood up and walked to the window that showed the alien fleet in the distance. "Your ships are beautiful, Ambassador. They show that your people value art and harmony. But I noticed something about them. They don't have any visible weapons." "Of course not," Veltar replied. "Weapons are tools of barbarism. Civilized species have no need for such things." Chen turned back to face them. "Then let me ask you one more question, Ambassador. If a species that was not civilized decided to attack your beautiful, peaceful ships, how would you defend yourselves?" The silence in the conference room stretched for several minutes. The alien delegates looked at each other with expressions that Admiral Chen was beginning to recognize as confusion and concern. Tar's crystal skin seemed to dim slightly, while Zixtel's insect-like mandibles clicked nervously. Admiral Cheneltar finally said, "I believe there may be some misunderstanding about the nature of galactic civilization. Perhaps we should discuss the protection and guidance that the Galactic Council can offer your species." Chen sat back down, studying the aliens carefully. "Protection from what exactly?" "From the dangers of unguided development," replied Neymara, the trade representative. Her liquid form rippled as she spoke. "Young species often make mistakes that can be catastrophic. Wars between colonies, resource depletion, technological disasters. The Council has helped thousands of species avoid such problems." "I see," Chen said slowly. "And how exactly does this protection work?" Veltar seemed to relax, apparently believing they were getting back to familiar territory. "It's quite simple, really. Your species would become a member of the galactic community, under Council guidance. We would help you establish proper governmental structures, provide technological assistance, and ensure peaceful development of your colonies. Commander Rodriguez, who had been standing quietly by the door, raised an eyebrow. Ambassador, what do you mean by proper governmental structures? Well, Veltar explained, your current system is rather chaotic. Multiple independent colonies, different military forces, competing corporate interests. The Council would help you establish a unified planetary government that could speak for all humans. Chen felt a cold anger building in her chest, but kept her voice level. And who would lead this unified government? Council-appointed administrators, of course, Zixtel said, his buzzing voice taking on what might have been enthusiasm. Beings with experience in managing developing civilizations. They would guide your species until you reached sufficient maturity to govern yourselves. How long does that usually take? Rodriguez asked. The aliens exchanged glances. Keithmore, whose skin had turned a deep red color, answered hesitantly. It varies. Some species achieve independence in as little as 500 years. Others require longer guidance. 500 years, Chen repeated slowly. And during this time, what happens to human colonies and resources? They would be managed efficiently, Nimara said brightly. The Council has perfected systems for resource allocation and population management. Your people would be assigned roles based on their natural abilities. Humans appear to have strong physical capabilities, so many would likely work in mining operations or heavy construction projects. Mining operations, Rodriguez said flatly. On our own worlds. Well, yes, Veltar said, seeming not to notice the change in the human's tone. The Council requires certain resources to maintain galactic civilization. Each member species contributes according to their abilities. It's a very fair system. Chen stood up and walked to a wall display showing the layout of human space. 17 colonies on 12 worlds, plus dozens of mining stations and research outposts. All of it built by human hands, defended by human blood. Ambassador, she said without turning around, let me make sure I understand this correctly. You want humans to give up control of our own worlds, accept foreign administrators, and work as laborers for the benefit of other species. In exchange, you'll protect us from unspecified dangers and provide technological assistance. Is that accurate? You make it sound rather harsh, Veltar protested. It's more of a partnership, a mutual benefit arrangement. Chen turned back to face them. What benefits do you get from this partnership? The question seemed to catch the aliens off guard. Plexum made several clicking sounds before answering. The Council gains the satisfaction of helping another species reach its potential. And of course, the additional resources and labor help maintain the stability of galactic civilization. I see. Chen's voice was getting colder. And what happens if we decline your generous offer? Decline. Veltar looked genuinely shocked. But Admiral, no species has ever declined Council membership. The benefits are obvious. Without our guidance, your species could destroy itself. You've already admitted that humans have a history of warfare. Left alone, you might develop weapons that could threaten the entire galaxy. We already have weapons that could threaten the entire galaxy, Rodriguez said quietly. Zixtel's head swiveled toward him. Impossible. Our sensors show that while your technology is advanced for such a young species, you lack the capability for true stellar warfare. Do we? Chen asked. She touched a control on the table, and the room's displays came alive with technical readouts. Computer, show our guest the specifications for the Ragnarok's main armament. The displays filled with weapon schematics and power output calculations. The aliens stared in growing amazement and horror as the numbers became clear. The ship they were sitting on carried enough firepower to sterilize entire continents. This is just one ship, Chen continued. We have 12 more like it, plus hundreds of smaller warships, and those are just the ships we keep in the inner system. Our colony defense forces have their own fleets. Plexom was making rapid calculations on a device he had pulled from somewhere on his body. Admiral, these power levels suggest weapons that could crack planetary crusts. Surely these are theoretical designs. The computer, Chen said, show the footage from the Titan proving grounds. The display changed to show a barren moon. A single ship identical to the Ragnarok fired a beam of pure energy at the moon's surface. The beam lasted only 3 seconds, but when it ended, there was a canyon 50 kilometers long and 10 kilometers deep, carved into the rock. That was a low-power test shot, Rodriguez added helpfully. We didn't want to crack the moon completely. Too much debris in Saturn's rings. The aliens sat in stunned silence. Finally, Veltar found his voice. Admiral, why would you build such weapons? What could possibly require such destructive power? We build them because we don't know what's out there, Chen replied. For all we knew, the galaxy might be full of species that think like humans, species that take what they want by force. We wanted to be ready, but such weapons violate every principle of civilized warfare, Zixel protested. We don't fight civilized wars, Rodriguez said. We fight to win. Keithmore, whose skin was now cycling through various shades of purple and orange, spoke up nervously. Admiral, surely you understand that weapons of such power cannot be allowed in the hands of an unguided species. The Council would have to insist on immediate disarmament as a condition of membership. The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. Chen's smile was sharp enough to cut steel. Disarmament? I see. And who would enforce this disarmament? The Council has peacekeeping forces, Zixel said, though his buzzing voice had lost much of its confidence. They maintain order throughout the galaxy. What kind of peacekeeping forces? Rodriguez asked. Patrol ships mainly. They monitor trade routes and respond to distress calls. The largest vessels are about half a kilometer long and carry advanced sensors and communication equipment. Chen and Rodriguez exchanged a look. The Admiral turned back to the aliens. Ambassador, let me explain something about human psychology. We don't like being told what to do by strangers. We especially don't like being told to give up the tools we use to protect ourselves. But Admiral Veltar pleaded, surely you can see the wisdom in preventing galactic warfare. If every species had weapons like yours, the results would be catastrophic. You're right, Chen agreed. It would be catastrophic for anyone who tried to attack us. The aliens were beginning to look genuinely distressed. Nimara's liquid form was rippling faster, and Plexim was making rapid clicking sounds that might have been some form of nervous communication. Admiral Veltar said carefully, I think perhaps we should contact the full council. This situation is more complex than we anticipated. There may be alternative arrangements that could be made. What kind of alternatives? Perhaps a different form of membership, one that allows you to maintain some autonomy while still benefiting from council guidance. Chen leaned forward. Ambassador, let me save you some time. Humans are not interested in any form of membership that involves giving up our independence, our weapons, or our right to govern ourselves. We've fought too hard for our freedom to hand it over to strangers. But without council protection, your species faces terrible dangers, Zixtao insisted. There are hostile forces in the galaxy. Pirates, rogue planets, stellar disasters. The Council maintains a network of early warning systems and emergency response fleets. What kind of hostile forces? Rodriguez asked. Well, Zixta said hesitantly, there are the void feeders from the galactic rim. They consume entire star systems, and the machine collective in the southern spiral arm sometimes sends scout probes into council space. Chen raised an eyebrow. Sometimes sends scout probes. What do you do about these threats? The council maintains defensive positions along our borders. We monitor the situation and evacuate populations when necessary. Evacuate? Rodriguez sounded incredulous. You run away. We preserve life. Veltar said defensively. Fighting such enemies would only lead to senseless destruction. Have you ever tried fighting them? Of course not. The risk would be too great. Chen stood up again and walked to the display, showing human space. Ambassador, I think I'm beginning to understand the real situation here. The Council doesn't protect member species from external threats. You hide from them, and when you can't hide, you run away. We preserve civilization, Keithmore protested, her skin now a bright orange color that Chen was beginning to associate with agitation. No, Chen said firmly. You preserve the status quo. You maintain a system where the Council controls resources and populations, and when real threats appear, you abandon entire star systems to save yourselves. That's not true, Veltar said, but his voice lacked conviction. Isn't it? Chen activated another display. Computer, Show the galactic map from our deep space observations. The display showed the galaxy with different regions marked in various colors. A large area near the galactic center was marked in red, with the notation, "No Council presence detected." Several regions along the rim were marked in yellow, labeled evacuated systems. "We've been watching you for longer than you've been watching us," Chen explained. "Our deep space monitoring stations have been tracking your communications and ship movements for decades. We know about the abandoned colonies. We know about the lost expeditions that never came back. We know about the regions of space that the Council simply avoids." The aliens looked like they had been struck by lightning. Plexum made a rapid series of clicking sounds, and Nim-Ara's form was rippling so fast, it was hard to focus on her. "You've been spying on us?" Veltar asked weakly. "We've been gathering intelligence," Chen corrected. "It's what humans do when we encounter something new. We learn everything we can about it before we decide whether it's a threat." "And what have you decided?" Zixtel asked, though he sounded like he didn't want to hear the answer. Chen smiled, and this time it wasn't threatening. It was almost pitying. "We've decided that the Galactic Council is a protection racket run by beings who are too afraid to face real threats. You offer protection you can't provide, in exchange for control you don't deserve. And when things get dangerous, you abandon the people who trusted you." The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, Veltar spoke in a voice barely above a whisper. "Admiral, if you won't accept Council membership, what do you propose?" "That depends," Chen replied. "Are you here to demand our surrender?" The alien delegation huddled together, in what appeared to be an urgent conference. They spoke in whispers and in languages that the Ragnarok's computers couldn't translate. Admiral Chen watched them carefully, noting how their body language had changed. Where before they had seemed confident and superior, now they looked nervous and uncertain. After several minutes, Veltar turned back to face the humans. His crystal skin had taken on a dull gray color that Chen was beginning to recognize as a sign of stress. "Admiral Chen," he said formally, "I'm afraid this conversation has taken an unexpected direction. The Council representatives were prepared to welcome humanity into galactic civilization, not to negotiate with an armed and potentially hostile species." Chen felt Commander Rodriguez tense beside her, but she kept her own voice calm and level. "Ambassador, we haven't shown any hostility. We've simply been honest about our capabilities and our unwillingness to surrender our independence. Your weapons constitute a threat to galactic peace." Zixtel buzzed angrily. "No single species should possess the power to destroy worlds. It goes against every principle of civilized society. And yet," Rodriguez pointed out, "those same weapons are the only reason you're negotiating with us at all instead of just dictating terms." The truth of that statement hung in the air like a challenge. Plexum made several rapid clicking sounds, and his companions looked at him with what might have been alarm. "What did he say?" Chen asked. Veltar hesitated before answering. He pointed out that our initial approach may have been culturally insensitive. Perhaps we should contact Fleet Commander Zixtel and request additional guidance. "Fleet Commander?" Chen raised an eyebrow. "I thought Zixtel here was your military consultant." "I am military consultant Zixel," the insect-like being said stiffly. "Fleet Commander Zixel commands the ships that brought us here. It is a common name among my people." Chen's smile was cold. "How convenient. And I suppose this fleet commander has different authority than you do." The aliens exchanged more nervous glances. Finally, spoke. "Admiral, I believe it would be beneficial for all parties if we could demonstrate the capabilities that have made the Galactic Council the dominant force in this galaxy. Perhaps a show of our technological superiority would help you understand the futility of resistance." The words hit the conference room like a physical blow. Rodriguez stepped forward, his hand moving instinctively toward his sidearm. "Are you threatening us, Ambassador?" "Not threatening," said quickly. "Demonstrating, showing you the power that protects galactic civilization. Surely even your species can appreciate the wisdom of joining the stronger side." Chen stood slowly, her movements deliberate and controlled. "Ambassador, I want to make sure I understand what you're suggesting. You want to show us your weapons, so that we'll be intimidated into accepting your terms." "It's not intimidation," Namara protested, her liquid form rippling with agitation. "It's education. Your species lacks the perspective that comes from knowing true galactic power." "I see." Chen walked to the communication panel on the conference table. Computer, open a channel to the alien fleet. Admiral, Veltar said urgently. That's not necessary. We can arrange a demonstration through proper diplomatic channels. Chen ignored him. The main display flickered and showed the bridge of one of the alien ships. The being that appeared looked like a larger, more ornately decorated version of Zixal. His voice buzzed with authority. I am Fleet Commander Zixal, of the Galactic Council Exploration Fleet. You must be Admiral Chen. I understand there have been some misunderstandings regarding humanity's place in galactic civilization. That's one way to put it, Chen replied. Your diplomatic team has suggested that a demonstration of council power might help us see reason. Is that your position as well? The fleet commander mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. Admiral, your species has shown remarkable technological development for such a primitive civilization. However, you lack the broader perspective that comes from true galactic citizenship. Perhaps a small demonstration would indeed be educational. Chen felt the familiar calm that came before battle settling over her. What kind of demonstration did you have in mind? Nothing harmful, the fleet commander assured her. Perhaps we could show you what our standard defensive systems can do to a small asteroid. It would give you a sense of the power that protects council space. Rodriguez moved closer to Chen and spoke quietly. Ma'am, there's a nickel-iron asteroid about 2 million kilometers off our starboard bow, roughly 500 meters in diameter. Chen nodded. Fleet Commander, there's an asteroid at coordinates. She read off the location. Will that serve your purpose? Perfectly. The fleet commander's image disappeared from the screen, replaced by an external view of the alien fleet. Chen immediately opened an internal channel. All hands, this is the Admiral. We are about to observe an alien weapons demonstration. All personnel are to remain at battle stations and maintain full alertness. Whatever they show us, we show nothing in return unless I give specific orders. On the external display, one of the alien ships began to glow more brightly. Its blue light intensified and focused into a beam that lanced out across space. The beam struck the asteroid, and the rocky body simply vanished in a flash of brilliant light. The alien delegation looked pleased with themselves. Veltar's crystal skin had regained some of its brightness. As you can see, Admiral, the Council possesses weapons that can eliminate threats with surgical precision. That asteroid was completely converted to energy. No debris, no radiation, just clean annihilation. Chen studied the readings from the ship's sensors. The energy output had been impressive, certainly enough to destroy the small asteroid, but it had taken the alien ship nearly 30 seconds to charge the weapon, and the beam itself had lasted for almost 10 seconds. In a real battle, that would be an eternity. Impressive, she said aloud. How often can you fire a weapon like that? The antimatter lance requires a charging period between shots. Fleet Commander Zixtal explained from the display. Approximately 4 of your minutes for full power. Chen nodded, as if she was suitably impressed. That is quite a weapon. I can see why you feel confident about Council security. The aliens visibly relaxed. Keith Moore's skin shifted to a pleasant blue color, and Nimra's rippling calm to a gentle wave pattern. Now, perhaps, Velar said hopefully, you can understand why resistance to Council authority is both futile and unnecessary. With such power protecting galactic civilization, surely humanity would be safer as part of the greater community. Chen turned to Rodriguez. Commander, how long would it take to prepare a demonstration of our own? Ma'am. Rodriguez looked confused. The fleet commander was kind enough to show us their capabilities. It seems only polite to return the favor. The aliens suddenly looked nervous again. Admiral said quickly, that's really not necessary. We've seen your weapon specifications. Very impressive for a developing species. Specifications are just numbers on a screen, Chen replied. I think our new friends deserve to see what human engineering can actually accomplish. She turned back to the communication panel. Fleet Commander, we'd like to show you one of our weapon systems in action. In the interest of mutual understanding, of course. The fleet commander appeared uncertain. Admiral, I'm not sure that's wise. Weapons demonstrations can sometimes be misinterpreted as hostile acts. Not at all, Chen said cheerfully. You've assured us this is purely educational. There's another asteroid in the outer system that would make an excellent target. Much larger than the one you destroyed. About 20 kilometers in diameter. The aliens looked at each other with growing alarm. Plexum made rapid clicking sounds and Zixtel's buzzing became more agitated. 20 kilometers. Fleet Commander Zixtel's voice was strained. Admiral, surely a smaller target would be sufficient for demonstration purposes. This particular asteroid has been designated for resource extraction, Chen explained. We were planning to break it up anyway. This just saves us some time. She turned to Rodriguez. Commander, signal the testing range. Tell them to prepare the gravitational lance for a full-power demonstration. The what? Veltar asked weakly. Chen smiled at him. One of our more experimental weapons. We don't get many chances to test it at full power. Your visit provides an excellent opportunity. On the display, the view shifted to show a massive asteroid tumbling slowly through space. Unlike the small rocky body the aliens had destroyed, this one was large enough to have its own weak gravitational field. Ice and metal glinted on its surface as it rotated. Admiral Fleet Commander Zixtel said urgently, "Perhaps this demonstration should be postponed. We wouldn't want any accidents." "Don't worry," Chen assured him. "We're very careful with our targeting systems." The Ragnarok's main display showed power levels climbing throughout the ship. The gravitational lance drew energy from the ship's main reactors and 3 backup fusion plants. Unlike the alien weapon, it required no charging time. The power was always available. "Gravitational lance ready to fire," Rodriguez reported. "Fire," Chen ordered. What happened next was not like the clean anti-adder beam the aliens had used. The gravitational lance created a focused distortion in space-time itself. Instead of destroying matter, it twisted space around the target asteroid. The 20-kilometer rock folded in on itself like a piece of paper being crumpled. Space bent and warped around it, until the asteroid was compressed into a sphere barely a kilometer across. Then, as the weapon shut down, the compressed matter exploded outward with the force of a small star. The explosion was visible across half the solar system. The shock wave disrupted communications between the alien ships and caused several of them to retreat to a safer distance. On the Ragnarok, the only sign that they had fired was a slight vibration in the deck plates. The silence in the conference room was absolute. The alien delegation stared at the display, showing the expanding cloud of debris where the asteroid had been. Several of them were making sounds that the translation system couldn't interpret. Finally, Veltar found his voice. "Admiral, what did you just do?" "We broke up an asteroid," Chen replied casually. "As I mentioned, it was scheduled for resource extraction anyway. But the energy readings," Plexum clicked frantically. "The spatial distortions. You didn't just destroy it, you collapsed local space-time. That's how the gravitational lance works," Rodriguez explained helpfully. "It creates a temporary black hole at the target coordinates. Very effective against large, heavily armored targets." Fleet Commander Zixtel's image had returned to the display, but he looked shaken. "Admiral Chen, weapons that manipulate space-time are forbidden under every galactic treaty. The power required alone could destabilize entire star systems." Chen turned to face him directly. "Fleet Commander, humanity is not a signatory to any galactic treaties. We developed our weapons based on what we thought we might need to defend ourselves. If your treaties forbid certain types of weapons, perhaps you should consider why you felt the need to ban them." "Because they're too dangerous," Zixtel buzzed. "No species should have the power to affect space-time itself. And yet we do," Chen pointed out. "The question now is what you plan to do about it." The alien ships had pulled back to a distance of over 5 million kilometers. Even at that range, they seemed nervous about getting closer to the Ragnarok. "Admiral," said carefully, "I believe we may need to reconsider our approach to human integration into galactic society." "Integration?" Chen's voice was dangerous. "Ambassador, after what we've seen today, I'm beginning to wonder if galactic society is something humanity wants to be integrated into." The aliens looked at each other in panic. Nimara's liquid form was churning violently, and Keith Moore's skin was cycling through colors so rapidly, it was making the humans dizzy to look at her. "What do you mean?" Tar asked. Chen walked back to the window, showing the alien fleet in the distance. "I mean that your demonstration showed us exactly what Council protection is worth. You destroyed a small rock with a weapon that takes 4 minutes to recharge. We collapsed space-time and destroyed a target 40,000 times larger with a weapon that fires instantly." She turned back to face them. Your fleet is armed with weapons designed to police primitives. Our ships carry weapons designed to fight wars. There's a difference, Admiral, Fleet Commander Zixtel said desperately from the display. Surely, we can find some accommodation. The Council is always willing to negotiate with reasonable species. Chen's smile was sharp as a blade. Then perhaps it's time to discuss new terms. Terms between equals. The aftermath of the weapons demonstration left the alien delegation in visible distress. Veltar's crystal skin had turned an ash-gray color, while Zixtel's mandibles clicked incessantly. The other aliens appeared to be having some form of nervous breakdown, with Keith Moore's skin shifting through colors so rapidly it hurt to look at, and Namara's liquid form rippling like a stormy sea. Admiral Chen watched them with growing understanding. These beings had never encountered real resistance to their authority. The Galactic Council had ruled through technological superiority for so long that they had forgotten how to deal with equals, let alone potential superiors. "Admiral," Veltar said, his musical voice now strained and discordant, "I must contact the full council immediately. This situation has moved far beyond our original parameters." "Has it?" Chen asked calmly. "You came here offering membership in your galactic community. We've simply shown you what humanity brings to the table. What you bring to the table is chaos." Zixtel buzzed angrily. "Weapons that violate every principle of civilized warfare. Technology that could destabilize entire regions of space. Your species represents everything the Council was created to prevent." Commander Rodriguez stepped forward. "And what exactly was the Council created to prevent?" "War." Plexum clicked rapidly. "Destruction. The kind of military thinking that your species seems to embrace. The galaxy has been at peace for over 1,000 years, because civilized species understand that conflict only leads to suffering." "Peace?" Chen repeated slowly. "Tell me, how many species have gone extinct during your 1,000 years of peace?" The question caught them off guard. The aliens looked at each other uncertainly before Veltar answered. "Extinction is a natural process. Some species fail to adapt to changing conditions. The Council cannot save every civilization from its own limitations." "That's not what I asked," Chen pressed. "How many species have been destroyed by external forces while under Council protection?" The silence stretched uncomfortably long. Finally, Namara spoke in a voice like bubbling water. "There have been some unfortunate losses, species that encountered dangers beyond Council ability to address. But those were unavoidable tragedies." "Unavoidable," Rodriguez repeated. "Or was it just easier to write them off than to fight for them?" "You don't understand the scope of galactic civilization," Zixtawal protested. "There are millions of worlds, billions of beings to protect. Sometimes difficult choices must be made." Chen activated the room's display system again. "Computer, show the analysis of Council territorial changes over the past 500 years." The holographic display filled with a map of the galaxy. Large sections were highlighted in different colors, with dates and annotations marking changes in Council control. "According to our observations," Chen explained, "the Council has lost control of approximately 30,000 star systems in the past 5 centuries. That includes over 200 inhabited worlds that simply disappeared from your communication networks." The aliens stared at the display in horrified fascination. Tar's voice was barely a whisper. "How do you know this?" "Because we've been watching," Chen replied. "Humans are good at gathering intelligence. We noticed that your patrol routes changed over time, avoiding certain regions. Your trade network stopped including certain systems. Your emergency response protocols list entire sectors as temporarily inaccessible." She manipulated the display to zoom in on specific regions. "Here's the Antar sector. According to your own communications, evacuated 50 years ago due to unusual stellar phenomena. The stars are still there. The planets are still there. But there's no sign of the 3 billion Council citizens who used to live there." "That was the Void Feeders," Plexum said defensively. "We had no choice but to evacuate. Fighting them would have been suicide." "Would it?" Rodriguez asked. "Or did you just decide that evacuation was easier than developing weapons capable of fighting back?" The aliens looked increasingly uncomfortable. Keith Moore spoke in a voice that crackled with static. "The Void Feeders consume matter at the subatomic level. No conventional weapon can harm them." "No conventional weapon," Chen agreed. "But you never tried unconventional weapons, did you?" You never tried gravitational lances or quantum disruption fields or any of the other technologies that humanity developed during our wars, because such weapons are too dangerous. Veltar insisted they could destroy entire star systems, and yet the Void Feeders are destroying star systems anyway. Chen pointed out, the difference is that our weapons might actually stop them. Fleet Commander Zixtel's image had been silent during this exchange, but now he spoke with obvious reluctance. Admiral, the Council has considered more aggressive responses to galactic threats, but the cost in lives and resources would be enormous. It is more logical to preserve what can be preserved. More logical, Chen said coldly, or more convenient. The accusation hung in the air like a challenge. The aliens seemed to shrink in on themselves, and Chen realized she was seeing something that probably hadn't happened in the council chambers for centuries. Beings in authority being forced to confront the consequences of their decisions. Admiral Chen said desperately, "Surely you understand that the council's primary responsibility is to maintain stability. Sometimes that requires making difficult choices about resource allocation." Resource allocation, Rodriguez repeated. "Is that what you call abandoning entire civilizations?" "We save who we can," Naimara protested, her liquid form churning with agitation. "The universe is vast and dangerous. No one can save everyone." Chen walked to the display, showing the lost sectors. "But you don't even try, do you? When a threat appears, your first response is to evacuate. Your second response is to write off the lost territory. You've never actually fought a war to defend your member species. War is not the answer." Zixel buzzed. "War only creates more suffering. Tell that to the 3 billion beings in the Antars sector," Rodriguez said harshly. "Tell that to the colonies that were abandoned to the machine collective. Tell that to all the species that trusted council protection and got evacuation orders instead." The aliens were beginning to look desperate. Plexum made rapid clicking sounds that the translator couldn't interpret, while Veltar's crystal skin had turned almost completely transparent. Admiral Fleet Commander Zixal said from the display, "I believe this conversation has become counterproductive. Perhaps we should return to the original proposal. Humanity could benefit greatly from council membership, even with modifications to the standard arrangement." Chen turned to face the screen. "What kind of modifications?" "Perhaps a form of associate membership. You would maintain some autonomy over your own worlds while still benefiting from council trade networks and technological exchange." "In exchange for what?" The fleet commander hesitated. "Certain restrictions on weapons development would be necessary. The technologies you've demonstrated pose too great a risk to galactic stability." Chen felt the familiar anger building in her chest. "Let me understand this correctly. You want us to give up the weapons that make us useful to you, in exchange for the privilege of trading with civilizations that abandon their own people when things get difficult," Admiral pleaded. "Surely you can see the wisdom in preventing an arms race. If every species developed weapons like yours, the galaxy would be consumed by warfare." "Would it?" Chen asked. "Or would the real threats finally face opposition they couldn't ignore?" She activated another display, this one showing the current positions of various galactic threats. The Void Feeders are consuming approximately 50 star systems per year. The Machine Collective is expanding at a rate of 30 systems annually. The Crimson Tide has been pushing into council space for 2 centuries, and your response has been to fall back every time they advance. The council maintains defensive positions, Zixtel protested weakly. "Defensive positions that keep retreating," Rodriguez observed. "At the current rate, you'll have lost half of council space within 300 years. That's why humanity's membership is so important," Namara said urgently. "Your military capabilities could help us establish more effective defensive strategies." Chen laughed, but it wasn't a pleasant sound. "You want our military capabilities, but you want to restrict our weapons development. You want us to fight your wars, but you don't want us to have the tools to win them. We want to prevent galactic catastrophe," Veltar said desperately. "No," Chen replied firmly. "You want to maintain control. You've built a civilization based on managing decline, rather than facing challenges. You've convinced yourselves that retreat is wisdom, and abandonment is mercy." She turned to address Fleet Commander Zixel directly. "Commander, let me make humanity's position clear. We will not join an organization that abandons its own people. We will not accept restrictions on our ability to defend ourselves. And we will not pretend that your failures of leadership are inevitable tragedies. Then what do you propose? The fleet commander asked. Chen's smile was cold and determined. I propose that it's time for the galaxy to have leaders who actually know how to fight. The words hit the conference room like a physical blow. The alien delegation recoiled, as if they had been slapped, while Fleet Commander Zixtal's image flickered with what might have been interference or shock. You're talking about overthrowing the council, Veltar whispered in horror. I'm talking about replacing incompetent leadership with effective leadership, Chen corrected. The council has had 1,000 years to prove that peaceful negotiation can handle galactic threats. The result is that you're losing territory faster than you're gaining it, and entire civilizations are going extinct because you're too afraid to fight. Admiral Fleet Commander Zixtal said urgently. Such talk borders on a declaration of war against galactic civilization itself. Chen's expression didn't change. Commander, if galactic civilization is represented by leaders who abandon their own people and refuse to defend their territory, then perhaps it's time for a change. The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, spoke in a voice barely above a whisper. Admiral Chen, are you declaring war on the Galactic Council? Chen's answer was delivered with the calm certainty of someone who had already made their decision. Ambassador, I'm offering you one last chance to negotiate as equals. Because if you choose to treat us as enemies, you're going to discover that humans are much better at war than we are at diplomacy. The silence in the conference room stretched for what felt like an eternity. Admiral Chen could see the alien delegation struggling with concepts that their civilization had apparently forgotten how to process. The idea that someone might challenge. The Galactic Council's authority seemed to have broken something fundamental in their worldview. Fleet Commander Zixtal was the first to recover. His image on the display showed signs of rapid movement in the background as his bridge crew responded to emergency signals. Admiral Chen, he said carefully, I am ordering my fleet to withdraw to a safe distance while we contact the full council. This situation requires immediate consultation with higher authorities. That's probably wise, Chen agreed. But, Commander, I want you to understand something before you make that call. Humanity didn't ask for this confrontation. We were perfectly content to develop our civilization in isolation. You came to us. We came offering friendship and protection. Veltar protested weakly, his crystal skin now so pale it was almost invisible. You came offering subjugation disguised as friendship, Rodriguez corrected. There's a difference. Chen walked to the main display and called up a new set of data. Computers show the long-range sensor analysis of galactic threat movements. The holographic display filled with tactical information that made the aliens gasp in shock. The data showed not just the current positions of various hostile forces, but projected movement patterns, supply lines, and strategic objectives. This is classified council intelligence. Zixtal buzzed frantically. How do you have access to this information? We told you, Chen replied. Humans are good at gathering intelligence. We've been monitoring galactic communications for decades. We know about the Void Feeder advance into the Proxima sector. We know about the Machine Collective's new construction facilities in the Outer Rim. We know about the Crimson Tide plans to assault the core worlds. She manipulated the display to highlight specific threat patterns. More importantly, we know that the Council has been hiding the true scope of these threats from your own member species. The official reports claim these are minor incursions. The reality is that you're facing a coordinated assault on multiple fronts. Plexum made rapid clicking sounds. Impossible. These threats operate independently. There's no coordination between them, isn't there? Chen zoomed in on a specific region of space. These are hyperspace corridor maps showing movement patterns over the past 10 years. Notice how the attacks are coordinated to prevent Council forces from responding effectively to any single threat. The display showed a clear pattern of attacks, timed to stretch Council resources thin. When the Void Feeders struck in one sector, the Machine Collective would advance in another. When the Council moved forces to counter the Crimson Tide, the other threats would intensify their activities. They're working together, Nimara whispered, her liquid form rippling with shock. Of course they are, Rodriguez said. It's basic military strategy. You coordinate your attacks to maximize the enemy's weakness. The only surprising thing is that the Council never noticed. We noticed, Fleet Commander Zixel said defensively. But we determined that coincidental timing was more likely than actual coordination. Chen looked at him with something approaching pity. Commander, that's exactly the kind of thinking that's going to get your civilization destroyed. You see patterns that threaten your worldview, so you convince yourselves they don't exist. She activated another display. This is a strategic analysis prepared by our military planning division. Based on current threat expansion rates and council response capabilities, the Galactic Council will lose effective control of 70% of its territory within the next century. The projection showed the galaxy slowly being consumed by various hostile forces, with council space shrinking, like an island being swallowed by rising water. That analysis assumes the council continues its current strategy of managed retreat, Chen continued. But there's another possibility. The display changed to show a very different scenario. In this projection, the threat expansion was not only halted, but reversed. Hostile territories began shrinking as human forces struck at key strategic points. This is what happens if humanity takes an active role in galactic defense, Chen explained. We've identified the critical infrastructure that supports each major threat. The void feeders rely on exotic matter processing stations in dead star systems. The machine collective requires rare elements that can only be mined from specific types of planets. The Crimson Tide depends on subspace relay networks for coordination. She highlighted each target on the display. Destroy these facilities, and their ability to operate effectively. It's not complicated. It just requires the will to fight back. Tar stared at the display in amazement. Admiral, this level of strategic analysis, it would take the Council years to develop such comprehensive intelligence. It took us 6 months, Rodriguez said. And that was just a side project while we were preparing for possible first contact scenarios. The implications of that statement hit the aliens like a physical blow. If humans could develop such detailed intelligence as a side project, what could they accomplish if they actually focused their full attention on galactic threats? Admiral Fleet Commander Zixal said slowly, "Are you proposing that humanity take control of galactic defense?" Chen shook her head. "I'm proposing that humanity take responsibility for galactic defense. There's a difference. We're not interested in ruling other species. We're interested in creating a galaxy where civilized beings can live without constantly looking over their shoulders. But such an undertaking would require enormous resources." Plexum clicked nervously. The logistical challenges alone would be staggering. Would they? Chen activated yet another display. Computers show the resource allocation analysis. The new display showed detailed breakdowns of resource flows throughout Council space. The numbers were staggering, but not in the way the aliens expected. According to our analysis, Chen explained, the Council currently spends 60% of its total resources on administration, bureaucracy, and maintaining control over member species. Another 30% goes to evacuation operations and refugee management. Only 10% is actually spent on active defense. The aliens stared at the numbers in shock. Keith Moore's skin had turned a deep purple color that Chen was beginning to associate with profound distress. If you reallocated just half of your administrative spending to military operations, Rodriguez continued, you could field a defensive force 10 times larger than your current capabilities. But administration is necessary, Namara protested. Someone must coordinate trade, manage disputes, oversee development projects. Someone. Yes, Chen agreed, but not 60% of your entire civilization. Most of that bureaucracy exists to maintain council control, not to provide necessary services. Fleet Commander Zixal's image showed signs of increasing agitation. Admiral, you're talking about dismantling the entire structure of galactic government. I'm talking about replacing a failed system with one that actually works, Chen replied. The current structure has proven incapable of defending the beings it claims to protect. It's time to try something new. She walked to the center of the room and faced each of the aliens in turn. Here's what humanity is prepared to offer. We will take responsibility for coordinating galactic defense against external threats. We will share our military technology with any species willing to actually use it to defend their territory. We will provide strategic planning and tactical support for operations against hostile forces. In exchange for what? Villar asked suspiciously. Autonomy, Chen said simply. Every species maintains full control over their own worlds and their own affairs. No more council administrators. No more mandatory resource contributions. No more evacuation orders when threats appear. But without central coordination, the galaxy would descend into chaos. Zixtal buzzed frantically. Would it? Rodriguez asked. Or would it finally start taking care of itself instead of depending on a bureaucracy that's proven incapable of effective action? Chen activated one final display. This is a communication from the Hishgamani High Command. It was transmitted just before your fleet arrived in our system. The display showed an official council document marked with the highest security classifications. As the aliens read it, their expressions shifted from confusion to horror. This is impossible, Veltar whispered. The council would never authorize such measures. Read it again. Chen suggested pay special attention to the section about acceptable losses and strategic withdrawals. The document outlined plans to abandon 12 more sectors to advancing hostile forces, including 3 that contained major population centers. The reasoning was coldly logical. The resources required to defend these systems could be better used to fortify core world defenses. This represents over 40 billion sentient beings. Plexum clicked in disbelief. The Council cannot simply abandon so many lives. The Council already has. Rodriguez pointed out. This document is dated 3 months ago. They've been implementing these withdrawals while telling member species that the situation is under control. Fleet Commander Zixtal's image flickered as he apparently received new communications. When he returned his attention to the conference, his voice was strained. Admiral Chen, I have just received emergency orders from Council High Command. I am directed to inform you that humanity has 48 hours to accept standard Council membership terms or face economic sanctions and possible military intervention. The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. Chen's expression didn't change, but something dangerous flickered in her eyes. Military intervention, she repeated slowly, from the same forces that haven't won a real battle in over 1,000 years. Admiral, Veltar said desperately, surely this situation doesn't need to escalate to violence. There must be some accommodation that can be reached. Chen walked to the window, showing the alien fleet in the distance. The ships looked even more fragile now that she understood the mindset that had created them. Ambassador, she said without turning around, let me explain something about human psychology. When someone threatens us, we don't negotiate. We prepare for war. She turned back to face the alien delegation. Your council has just made the same mistake that every human enemy has made throughout our history. They've assumed that because we were willing to talk, we were willing to submit. Commander Rodriguez stepped forward. Admiral, should I signal the fleet? Chen nodded slowly. Send the activation codes, all fleets to battle stations, and transmit the prepared message to all human colonies. She looked directly at Fleet Commander Zixtal's image. Commander, I suggest you inform your superiors that they have misunderstood the situation. Humanity is not a primitive species seeking council protection. We are a military power that has been evaluating the council's competence. The display showed new contacts appearing on the tactical screen. Human ships were emerging from concealment throughout the solar system. Not just the Ragnarok, but an entire fleet of vessels that had been hiding in the asteroid belt and outer planet shadows. Our evaluation is complete, Chen continued. The Council has failed to protect galactic civilization and has proven incapable of reform. Therefore, humanity will be taking responsibility for galactic defense with or without Council cooperation. Fleet Commander Zixtal stared at the tactical display showing dozens of human warships. Admiral, how many ships do you have? Chen's smile was sharp as a blade. Enough. She turned to address the alien delegation one final time. Ambassadors, you have a choice to make. You can return to your council and recommend cooperation with humanity's new defensive alliance. Or you can return as messengers, carrying word that the age of council dominance is over. The silence that followed was broken only by the sound of alien breathing and the distant hum of the ship's engines. Finally, spoke in a voice barely above a whisper. Admiral Chen, what if the council chooses to fight? Chen's expression didn't change, but her voice carried the weight of absolute certainty. Then they'll discover why humans never lose wars. We just run out of enemies.